Speaker who was
Hello.
kind enough to join us for dinner the other night. If you were there, thank you for coming.
And even after that, I came back.
I know, right? Exactly. It was welcome everybody, and so we're going to continue our voyage with Pete on all sorts of good topics. I'm just kind of curious up front. Does anyone want to talk about their customer profiles that we did at the very end? Would that be fun, or has everybody forgotten it since Tuesday? Yes. No.
I started. It's pretty extensive, so I haven't finished it. But I started.
Doing it, did it reveal anything to you that you maybe that you were surprised about, right? Maybe.
I think it's just very thorough, like going through all the first steps for the jobs to be done. The pushes and pulls and habits and anxieties, and each one of those pieces was helpful just to slightly reframe how you're looking at things and articulate that. I think was helpful. Again, taking time to go through each and every one of them will probably do the same.
And I'm glad to hear you say that. I think I'm trying to give you all a list. I don't know that it needs to be exhaustive, but it really depends on the nature of the industry you're focusing on, the customer, the problem the customer has, the product you want to build to help them solve the problem, like all of those things. And so you get a better feel for it as you go. The other thing that the kind of expanded list of jobs to be done helps with is it sort of trains you in a way to be thinking beyond just the functional use of I have a hammer and that's a nail and that's all it's for, right? And what you learn is that there's other factors that are involved that cause hesitation when people want to adopt a new product. And so you get sensitive to that by working through that. And then it just helps you, when you're doing customer discovery, to actually pick up on signals that are insights that your competitors won't pick up on. Because most people are too lazy to do all this work. Yeah, don't let that be you though. Anybody else want to share a little? No? I mean, it's either that or you get to talk about pricing, which I don't know. There's just a few topics that are less interesting than pricing. I think it's awesome. But anyway, okay. If that's it, we'll get rolling then. Thank you. Okay. So today, let me just actually before I get started, let me back up. Like I said yesterday, so I am a B2B SaaS software guy. What I'm going to show you here is what I've developed to really focus on software products. I will tell you, though, that the fundamentals of it will apply almost anywhere. So as we're going through this, if you have a specific use case, right, or circumstance you want to talk about, let me know, and let's think about how that principle works in that environment, okay? Sound good? All right. So quick story here. So I talked about VMware. This was really interesting. So back in 2010, I know it sounds like ancient history, it sort of is, we sold our software on a per server basis. So if a customer had 20,000 servers, they bought licenses for 20,000 servers. It wound up switching a little bit in this time frame. Multiprocessor became a thing. And so we wound up, instead of it being per server, we did it per CPU, but it was still based on a physical thing. How many CPUs do you have? And at that time, quad core and 8 core were really the limit. There weren't a lot of 16 and 32, like these, and most of that doesn't even matter anymore. The point is that was how we sold the product. And I'm going to see how this, So what happened was and we were running at about $2.8 billion of revenue of sales a year at that time. Big number. So one of the things that we found out from a lot of customer interviews, executive briefings, and so forth, was that when we were selling our technology to these very large companies, there's a thing that happens in big companies called chargeback. So central groups like IT or legal or HR, when they need to do things for other parts of the business so that they don't sort of inadvertently eat up their own budget, there's ideas of chargebacks. It's like an internal economics that companies have to allow a lot of the services and capabilities transfer to happen. Do you guys follow? Does that make sense? So if you're in marketing and you want IT to roll out a new customer relationship management piece of software, that's IT's job. They're a service organization, but they also have to service legal, sales, engineering. Like they have all these other quote unquote internal customers. Does that follow? Right? So what we found out was that the unit of cost that IT was using was the virtual machine. So VMware software, you would install it, and then you would create these things called virtual machines that acted like computers, and then you would install an application on it, and so you could, put 30, 40, 100 computers on one computer. Well, what we found out was that the unit of value from the customer's perspective was how many virtual machines am I launching for this marketing an initiative or project, for this engineering project, for this sales project, right? And what we wound up doing was changing the pricing model. And it was actually one of the first ever consumption models out there in tech, where customers didn't pay for how many servers they had, they paid for how many virtual machines they created. And when we did that, there was a little bit of fuss. Customers thought we were gouging and so on and so forth. But as more and more customers kind of started to understand this idea of what is the actual unit of value that's being delivered from the software, not the cost associated with the server, but the actual value was this VM, things changed for the better for us. And within 3 years, we grew from 2.8 billion to 5.2 billion in revenue. We unlocked an enormous amount of value that customers were happy to pay us for because they could predict their usage better. They understood how it was being consumed in their own organizations. And because of that, because we made it simpler to measure and to measure the value, we had this explosion in growth. Other people will tell you going from 2.8 to 5.2 in a couple years, 23% compound annual growth at that scale is tough to do. At the time, not many companies until that point. I think Oracle was the only other company that had done it at that time. Okay. So what I'm trying to show you here is we didn't change the product. We didn't change who we were serving, the customer. We didn't change the problem. We didn't change anything. We changed how we charged. And that was by far the biggest element that contributed to the growth. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. Yeah.
Pete, was overcoming the reticence toward paying per virtual machine, was the argument like, look, you're saving buying a $2,000 PC by buying a $100 license for this virtual machine? Is that basically how you got over that, or?
No, it was because the internal IT teams, they were not measuring sort of how applications got deployed on a per server basis. It was all coming down to the VM. So they would run that new CRM across 2 or 3. Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thanks. They would run that across 2 or 3 people, or 2 or 3 virtual machines. And so they had a really granular accounting for how much resources that was taking up. And that was the good side of it. The bad side was at the early part, they just felt like we were nickeling and diming, right? Oh, you're now going to pay us for every VM you spin up. And some would think that would inhibit growth, right? Like, oh, now you have to pay for every time you use it. But the reality is that happens when you don't have a good value prop. But for our customers, they were saving and making money every time they spun up a new virtual machine. And so because of our product and the pricing alignment, it created this, enormous growth, right? Just absolutely insane. And that's a really important thing, is aligning how you charge with the problem you solve and the way the customer creates value with your product. So when we talk about pricing, it's just about making money. And there's a few components to it. Before we get in there, I'm going to introduce my little fictional product again. If you remember, Posh, right? This is just a application performance management product. It's a dev tool. That's all you need to remember, okay? We're going to use that as an example. I am putting up a few features here because I do think it's important. Like, one of the things we did with this fictional product is we understood from doing customer discovery that when there's API failures, they can cost 50 to 500K per hour. When they are able to fix those kinds of failures and improve the mean time to respond and the mean time between failure, right? They can start seeing all sorts of quantifiable business metrics going in the right direction. And then some of the value dimensions here, right? Like I said, MTTR is mean time to respond to an issue. As you start to improve that, and as you improve the mean time between failures, that means your system is running. And if you have millions of customers trying to hit the system, this is a really good thing. You're making a more resilient system. So what we're trying to show here is that Posh, this API application performance management monitoring tool, helps you build a more resilient site that not only saves you money, but actually can improve customer loyalty, right? The customer NPS scores, right? Customer satisfaction and so forth, okay? And there's a reason why I'm starting with this, right? It's like, Pete, this is a pricing discussion. Why are you talking about like this fictional product and what it does? And that's because the customers don't buy your product. No customer has ever bought a product. They buy the benefit of the product, buying what the product does for them. And that applies to B2C and B2B. One of the old examples of this, there's an ad from the 1940s, and the ad, I might even have it in here, read, "Nobody wants a drill. What they want is the hole." You just want the hole. And I can go into a fairly intricate example on that to spell it out. Maybe we'll get to that. Does everybody get that? Is everybody, like, raise your hand if it's a, yeah, okay, you got it. All right, good. Next time I'm gonna do that the reverse if you don't get it. But maybe that was easier. Okay, all right. I have these two golden rules that I've developed over 35 years of working on this stuff. Very, very simple, and they work together like yin and yang. The first one is, when you're deciding how you're going to price, align it with how the customer creates value with your product. So what does that mean? You have to think about, what is the customer trying to do? What is the job to be done? What problem are they trying to solve by doing that job? What's the use case, the context of that job, right? And by doing it, how are they creating value in their business? Meaning, like, basically when I say create value, think of it as they're improving a key performance indicator that is important to their business. That's probably the easiest way to think of creating value, right? It improves KPIs. So that is the first step. If you want to figure out your own pricing, first figure out how the customer measures improvement for their value drivers, for creating value. That's the first step of pricing. The second step is that once you think you have it, let's say it's maybe, if you're AWS, Amazon Web Services, what might be a way that you charge? Anybody? Compute, yep, Jaden?
On usage.
What's that?
On usage.
On usage, correct. So how much storage you're taking, how much CPU cycles, how much I/O, blah, blah, blah. I know it's super technical, but you get the idea. The key here is that once you figured out how your customer creates value with your product, you have to do the other side of it, which is you need to make sure you make more money when they create more value using your product. And those two have to keep you in balance, right? All right, so we'll go through a little bit more here. So basic pricing components. Yeah, Maria. Yeah.
Can you give an example of what how does a customer create value with the product? Like, for example, with AWS, like how would this actually work?
Yeah.
Like KPIs?
Yeah, because a customer is going to use S3, which is their storage service online. And that's because some customer decides that they don't want to go and buy a bunch of discs themselves and put it on a rack. So they're going to pay AWS for all of that storage. Let's say you're building a new music app, right? You need somewhere to put all that custom music that you have. Well, you're going to put it in S3. Part of your app is to deliver music to your customers. You need that music to live somewhere. It's got to live on storage. You're paying AWS for the storage. It's that simple. Like, if you want to, the value your product creates to the customer is being able to deliver the music, but Amazon helps you do that because they have the storage. So you're going to pay them for the storage. It's almost like cost of goods sold in a way, in that respect. At the end of the day, when I say create, I know this, we had this talk at dinner. When I say create value, I know that sounds like an amorphous concept. All it is your customer is using your product to improve a key performance metric. They're improving the number of days it takes to sell an item. They're improving the margin they make on a product. They're improving the number of days it takes for a patient to get out of the hospital, right? Those are all like key performance indicators in different industries. So you need to become a student not only of your own product, but you need to know your customers better than they know their business. I'm telling you, that is the only way to get this stuff right, is that I've done it so many times. You go to the customer and they're not even sure. You have to talk to like 3 or 4 people to get different bits and pieces, put it back together, and then present to them and say, is this how you make money? Are these the metrics that are most important to you? And they're like, oh yeah, that's like it. Because most businesses are just trying to make the donuts for the day. They're literally just trying to make the donuts, right? They haven't maybe figured all this stuff out. So you can be a better vendor, a better partner to a customer by being curious, like we talked about on Tuesday, asking questions, asking why is that important? Why does that matter? Who else cares about that a lot? Who would have a different opinion about that, right? These are all ways for you to zero in on truth. And when you do that, you're going to start finding these metrics that they all care about. Okay? All right. I'm using gears here because I like to think of your business as an engine with a bunch of different parts in it, like an old, internal combustion engine, right? And so I have this gear metaphor that I use. The absolute biggest gear in your engine for making money is what's called monetization. It is the monetization gear. Monetization is the act of capturing value. We're going to go into each of these in a moment. The second biggest gear. So somebody tell me, why is it important? Why is the gear size important? Somebody just tell me, just so I make sure I got the metaphor down. What does a big gear do?
Big gear moves a lot of smaller gears with less force.
Yeah, exactly. If you move this monetization gear 1 tooth, this guy spins like 4 times, right? This guy spins 3 times. That's why it's important. It's the gearing of a company. And this is how I think about overall go-to-market strategies. I think there are 6 key gears in a GTM strategy. That's a separate topic. So gear number 2, value metric. Value metric is how you charge. Monetization, how you capture value. Value metric, how you charge. Do I charge per gallon of gasoline? Do I charge per gigabyte of storage? Do I charge per API call? Do I charge per lipstick if I'm doing beauty product? You see what I'm saying? Like that's the unit of value, okay? Value metric. Third, and I know this sounds crazy, but this is actually the absolute least important thing that you're gonna have to try to get right, is the actual price of your product. It's one of the harder things to get exactly right. It's super easy to get it in the ballpark. But if you build a robust business, you're gonna be making so much money, you don't need to get the price exactly right when you're a startup, and you'll still make a bunch of money, okay? But price points come last, not first. There are a bunch of other components that I like to consider when I'm looking at a complete pricing strategy. That includes like, have you ever gone and like maybe bought, what would be something that you guys maybe have purchased online? Like ChatGPT, right? There's a free tier, then there's a paid tier, right? So that's called product packaging. That's what number one up here is. We're not going to talk about this today. Another component is bundling. That's when you take two different products and you put them together and it's better. Somebody name one of the most famous Microsoft Office, now something that's not tech. Something every single one of you have had, you loved it, and you got a toy every time you had it.
Oh my God.
It's a Happy Meal, right? Licensing, this is about the terms of use. You know that screen that pops up and you're like, I acknowledge, and you just scroll to the bottom, click go, and it's like you just, who knows what you're legally responsible for? Those are terms, okay? They are super important, especially in the age of AI, because they govern things called guardrails or rate limits or usage caps. I tend to push on Claude, Anthropic's product, pretty hard. And I routinely, almost every day, get rate limited. I get shut out of the product because I'm just pushing too many tokens through it. Because even though it feels like you're got unlimited, you're not. There's channel economics. So this is a fancy way of saying, like, you're going to need to pay other people to help you sell your product. If you are Heinz and you're selling ketchup, a little bit of what you sell goes to the grocery store because they're a channel, right? The grocery store is the channel to the customer for Heinz ketchup. Okay. If you're well, that's a different, I was going to go to the gas thing. But bottom line, sometimes when you're trying to get market acquisition, you might be giving incentives. You might be giving up. Let's say that you make 50% margin profit on every time you sell your product, but you really need a channel partner to bring it to the customer because you don't have direct access to the customer. Sometimes you'll give 30 of those points to the channel. You'll give them 30 points of the profit just so they'll sell it, so they can make money selling your product, right? So those are the economics, I mean, and this will eat into the margin you make, but you have to consider it. So what's really interesting is I've researched this a ton. I meant to put this slide in this here today. So the moment you make a decision on what problem your product is going to solve, you have made the decision on pricing. You probably don't know it, but it is there. You just haven't revealed it yet. It is literally like the problem you picked is a big block of marble, and as you get smarter about the problem and the customer, you're going to carve away the model to reveal a Michelangelo statue, this beautiful piece of artwork you call a pricing strategy. I don't know if that, does that metaphor help? I don't know if that worked. Okay. But you get it? Like, I'm trying to tell you, how you price is staring at you. The problem you solve dictates how you're going to price. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Is that interesting? Is that like a useful insight? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. So the first thing is, the pain point of the customer tells you what the monetization is. How they measure value preferences, tells you what the value metric is. And their usage patterns are a huge hint into how to price it, okay? So on the monetization front, you go talk to a customer and they tell you, we have to do manual document review and it costs us $10,000 a month and it's only 70% accurate. They are telling you their pain. It takes us too long to review the documents, it's not accurate, and it costs us a lot of money. That's the pain. Well, what it's hinting at is that you might be able to build an AI-based product that automatically does the review and delivers the result, and you might be able to get paid for that. By looking at the pain, does my laser work? I'm not gonna work up there. By looking at the customer's pain, we start to understand how we might capture value by doing a certain job for them. When it comes to the value metric, it's how they measure the value. Saying, we need faster insights from data with higher accuracy. They're telling you, when you're doing customer discovery, you're gonna hear things like this. The customer is telling you, this is what's important. It costs us $10,000 a month or whatever, a week it was, but this is really what's causing a problem, right? It's the accuracy. And we need insights, not just the accuracy of reviewing, we need the insights. So do you see, like, We thought the problem was this, right? First, it's like, oh, we need to review all these documents. Then we start to realize that how they're going to measure it is because they're going to see how many insights you're giving me and how much accuracy you're going to give me. Are you following me so far? Everybody good? So that might tell us that maybe we try to price based on a value metric of processing speed or time saved. It's just like faster insights means they want things with less time. It's very, very straightforward. I'm just listening to the customer and converting it. Yep.
Can you use another real world example for how the pain points reveal the monetization?
You pick an example and I'll walk you through it.
I don't know, give me an automobile, Tell me, what's that?
For an automobile,
Sure.
so on the monetization front,
Yeah. So you said pain points reveal the monetization model.
so let me do this. I'm going to take your automobile example and I'm going to turn it into car tires because I have an easier example in this case.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So name a car tire manufacturer. Michelin. Okay, good. I was going to hear there's like 3 possible ones there. Goodyear, Michelin. Well, there's Pirelli, right? All that. Okay. Okay, Michelin. Michelin sells tires for the cars that you guys drive. They also have an enormous business selling tires to what are called fleets. You have an idea of what that might be? So think UPS or FedEx or anybody that has a bunch of police, fire, right? They all have fleets of vehicles. So the problem around tires is what? They wear up, and they get punctured, right? So they basically wear out. They're consumable, okay? When do you replace your tires? When they break.
How do you define when they break?
Right, okay. If you're in a fleet, if you're running a fleet, can you wait for the tire to break?
No, you go based off of tread height, tread depth.
And so, but tell me more. He's saying tread height, but tell me more. Tell me what's behind that. What are they trying to do when they measure the tread depth?
They're trying to keep you from getting a flat or sliding off the road.
Right. I mean, you can't maybe they run over something, they puncture, right? You can't, that's hard to avoid, but right, you want to make sure they've got good tread. You want to make sure they're not going to get a flat from maybe a bump that the sidewall compresses or some crazy stuff like that, right? Okay. So the need for fleets is different. They have to be proactive about their tires. They can't wait for a problem to happen. And what do you think is the #1 indicator of tire wear?
Tread depth.
Huh?
Tread depth.
Tread depth? No, but what is the #1 I should say this. What is the #1 driver of tire wear?
Time used on the road.
How many?
Time used on the
Time used, what does that really mean?
just usage.
What is it? Miles. Miles. Okay, you see what we just did? Fleet vehicle, fleet. What's important to them? Delivering packages on time, on budget, no delays. What are some of the things that can go wrong? They can get flat tires. What do? They spend a bunch of money and time taking trucks off the road to measure tread depth, right? They start figuring out that at 10,000 miles, with a heavy load, right? You see where I'm going? I'm backing it all the way up to what they actually have to do. So you know what Michelin did? They created a subscription business for tires. They completely changed the business model. They said, we're just going to ship you tires. You just pay us a flat rate, and we're going to send you the tires, and you'll be able to change them and stay ahead of the game because we know, you're sharing data with us. We know about the number of miles that it takes to wear to a certain point. And after that, you get to after 10,000, and it goes from 5% chance to like 80% chance, right? So they completely changed the business model of tires, and they did it based on capturing value for their customer, which was to keep trucks on the road, not have to deal with a catastrophic event, which is not just a tire puncture, but the whole truck goes off the road, right? That was a long story, but I hope it was a really good one.
That's really helpful. So
Yeah.
it helps put into concrete terms how you're using pain points and practical situations to change how you would monetize a product.
So the lesson here is be very careful to think that your product is worth only the little problem that it solves. That kind of thinking would have not had Michelin, and by the way, this new program, fleet vehicle owner, loved it, loved it, happy to pay, and Michelin's profit margins, the margin dollars they created out of this business, astronomical, right? I mean, win-win, right? So the mistake would have been to not look at the entire value chain, right? To not truly understand what is behind the tires. Like, why do tires matter so much, right? And Michelin looked at it, they segmented, right? We talked about this for customer profile. They found a segment where they placed value on a different thing. They placed a lot of value on tires that are always good to go. And so then they made a product for that. They used existing tires, but they actually didn't innovate on product, they innovated on business model. And I think, I don't even remember what it is now, but like when it comes to fleet vehicles, I think they're the lead in serving those kinds of, those entities. Okay? Yeah, thank you for that, because I think that helps, like concrete. Some of these slides are made for a conference I'm doing, which is a bunch of B2B SaaS people, so. Okay, so willingness to pay, like, I know this, I'm just gonna go forward because I think we'll actually be able to cover these in a little more depth here. This is where I was going with the whole fleet vehicle. It's, when you're talking to a customer, you're not just, the mistake would be to talk about your product. Maria, sorry, you had your hand up before.
Yeah.
What is it? Sorry,
I was
sorry.
gonna ask, because when you talk to customers, I feel like they talk like with a feeling. So it's less of I don't know, but maybe because I was gonna say if, let's say someone was in the business of maybe marketing, so they're dealing more with the people front, and it's okay, we need to feel connected to maybe our industry or keeping at pace with what everybody else is, but we feel really disconnected.
Yeah.
How would you break this problem?
Awesome. Okay. Perfect. So you're in a discussion with an HR director, VP, and they're saying our problem is we feel disconnected with employees, right?
Yeah.
And you say, why does that matter?
So what if they?
And just stop.
Okay. So because I feel like the human answer would be well, we want to be able to they may say something we want people to feel like it's a community.
And why does that matter?
So they work well together.
And why would that be important?
Well, so people do their jobs.
And why is that important?
Because they gotta make money.
I mean, come on, right? So this is what I'm saying, right? You see
Yeah.
what I just did? I'm just asking you why and why does that matter? And you'll get to the answer. And the answer is productivity. We want to keep people because it's so much more costly to hire somebody than to backfill somebody after they leave. We want people to be happy so they stay longer. I mean, you can go on and on, right? But that's the idea. You just don't have an opinion about it. Just ask. Why does that matter? Why is it important? Who else cares a lot about this? Who doesn't think this is an important issue, right? If you're gonna try to fix this, who would be involved in making the requirements for a solution, right? All of these questions, you have to avoid ever talking about your product. Nobody wants to hear about your product. They just want to tell you their problem, and then they want you to tell them that you have an idea on how to fix it. That's it. That's really all people want. They might be nice to you and say, yeah, sure, tell me, give me your product demo. But that happens after you've convinced them that you might actually be able to solve a problem that matters to them. So that's what this looks, I could go on and on. I've done this so long, you could throw anything at me and I can always just come up with some other question. Yeah, of course, yeah.
What if, because I've encountered this, people go, I don't really know why.
Then you say, who would know? Who would care a lot about that?
But what if it just stops? You know what I mean? You ask why, and then they go, I don't really know why.
Then you can prompt them. You can say, I wonder if maybe feeling more connected would help people maybe have higher job satisfaction. What do you think? Yeah. Right? You can. Leading though? It sort of is, but if you're stopped in the mud against a concrete wall, you can do something like that. And if you're still stuck, you're just talking to the wrong person. And you need to go find somebody else to talk to.
At what point do you, let's say you have just a bad idea, at what point do you kind of see that difference in the responses and recognize that there's something maybe your problem could improve on, or maybe you need to take it another way?
So let me make sure I understand. You're saying that you are asking questions, and what it's revealing is that the product idea you have may not be a good one? Is that?
Yeah, like
that
what to kind of like look out for to
Yeah.
kind of realize, oh, maybe I should kind of go back to the drawing board or do
Yeah.
something more.
So what you're describing happens to 100% of entrepreneurs. I mean, whatever product you think you're going to build is not going to work for your first couple of customers. You're going to have to change it. And in fact, if it is going to work, it's only because you have some intuition, because you've done a little research already. So I wouldn't worry about it at all. The whole point of being there and not talking about your product and ask questions is to identify problems that are, number one, valuable to the business. Number two, important. It's a priority 1 or 2. Number 3, it is urgent. They need to solve it now. That's your job. It's likely going to lead you to a problem that you didn't anticipate, but it gives you an opportunity to still solve it and make a product for it. Does that sound good? Yeah?
Okay, so if it's kind of, if you're not really getting a ton of interest, there's still value in figuring out like the real problems.
You just said interest. What would they be interested about?
I guess like, cause I'm just speaking from my experience.
Yeah.
Cause when I deal with potential customers, I guess I always have my idea at the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think of like what more I can do to really get more value from the customer, just themselves and their problems.
So I think it goes back to kind of what Maria was saying. Like, it is important to make sure you have the right person. There's way more opportunity to talk to the wrong person than there is to get to the right one. And so you just very politely say, who else do you think would care a lot about this problem? You have to talk to many, many people, especially if you're doing B2B type stuff. You have to talk to more than one person to get a better feel for it. So that would be 1. And then 2, yes, it is absolutely possible that you go in there with an idea, and so you frame it, and you say, okay, in the context of how people, in the context of human resources and employee satisfaction, employee loyalty. You just frame it that way for the conversation, right? That's the world we're going to live in. Tell me about what you're experiencing, right? So you frame it, you give it some boundaries, and then you lay it in. But what you don't want to do is go in there and say, how badly is your employee satisfaction because of a feeling of disconnectedness? You see the difference? One is you're essentially kind of telling them what product you're going to sell anyway, versus widening the scope just far enough so that you give the customer a little bit of room to run to tell you what is most urgent, most important. It's very likely the problem you sought out to solve isn't really that important or valuable to them. Super, super likely. So you have to be willing to do the big P word, pivot. Yes, yeah.
And just to emphasize that point, I mean, the vast majority of people you talk to in large corporations when you go to meet with them are not going to have a wide strategic view on the organization,
So true.
its goals, where its profitability is and isn't, and so on and so forth. So we'll be meeting with, let's say, an engineer or a product manager or something, and they're in their corner. And so you'll be trying to, kind of elicit this information. And per what Pete just said, you'll probably have to talk to 2, 3, 5, 10 people there, or to work your way through that system to get to that person, because, too often you end up with people that have no vision of what the organization is, and what you're offering doesn't impact them at all, because they aren't responsible for, let's say, the profitability of their product. They're just responsible for delivering that product or something, and so on. Sorry, Pete.
No, I love it. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's perfect. All of what Mitch just said, I'm going to give you a cheat code. Does everybody know what a cheat code is? I learned that from my 16-year-old boy. Okay, you ready? Here's the cheat code. What do you have to do to get your bonus? Right? Then they answer that question, and if they don't, you say, well, what does your manager care most about in terms of your performance? That's going to tell you what KPI they care about. It's going to care about like what your manager is responsible for to their manager. And then you can even play along and say, okay, well, if that's how you get your bonus, how do you think your manager gets their bonus? It might not be right, but you see what we're doing? we're just cutting all the other nonsense out. We're just getting right to how people are motivated, which is to have high performance and be paid for it. Like, that is literally, they're going to enjoy their job. They're going to have a great time with their other friends and employees. And they're there because they agree on the mission and they feel a good value exchange. And so you can just ask that question. How do you get your bonus? How does your manager get their bonus? Why is that important? Who do you think cares? How is that bonus tied to what your CEO said was important for this year? What does your group work on that's a project that helps the CEO and exec team reach their objectives that they told the board they would hit? Again, they may not know. Then you say, who would know that answer? I don't know, Mitch. Do you guys do discovery? I mean, this is like we're talking way more about discovery than.
Yeah, we talked a bunch about customer discovery earlier in the semester, for sure.
Yeah, it's good. But this is practice. Nobody has this as a talent. You develop this. Every single one of you, by practicing, can develop this. Do you know what the best way to practice is? What's that? Doing it. Just go do it. Second best is work with a friend, work with a colleague, student that you feel can play a role. And if you've got no friends or colleagues, like me, then you can just use like ChatGPT. I do this all the time. I take a resume from somebody that I'd want to sell to. I take blog posts they've written, news articles about them, and I go train a custom GPT to be John Smith or Jane Doe. And I say, I'm going to interview that person. You play the role and help me develop my skills. I do this all the time. It's amazing how well it does on that.
That's vaguely creepy.
It is creepy. It is. Okay. So I built this. I'll get this to you guys. This is a lot. We're not going to get to everything, but I started thinking about like, how do I take everything I'm telling people and just give them like a cheat sheet for this to start like checkbox stuff? That's what this is. You start on the left, you move to the right, and you just kind of go through these questions one at a time. And so I'll make sure that you guys have this in slides and everything that we get to you. But you'll see more of this in a minute. Let me just talk about Posh for just a second. What I did here is the three things: monetization, value metric, and price points. Customer pain, desired outcomes, usage. And so if you look, right, revenue impact, 50 to 500K per hour. They want a 75% increase in automation. And they know that the usage patterns have these super high usage spikes and variable loads, right? And so part of that goes into how we start thinking about building a pricing model. So let me take a pause here because there's a lot of information on this. So I think I want to come back to this. Yeah. So we're not going to do this part. This was all kind of teed up for you all to kind of do an activity, but I actually ran this at UC Berkeley 2 weeks ago, and we didn't do the activities there either. But I do encourage you to do this activity once you get the slides. I'll send them out to Mitch and Grace later today. Okay. All right. So let's just deep dive a little bit on monetization. So again, we talked about how you capture value. My build is corrupted. I don't know what happened on my build. Let me just build this out. You're supposed to guess at all these. So this is important. There's a difference between monetization and how you charge a value metric. Monetization is the model. It's sort of like the periodic table of elements. These are fundamental ways of capturing value. Now, this is very specific to B2B software. There are a couple others out there that might be a little bit different than this. I think you can talk about when you just sell a record, right? Just retail in general. So these are first and foremost very, very much B2B, and then secondly, software. But I think there's a couple in here that are worth looking at because they are maybe different than you thought. I want somebody to tell, you guys recognize all these logos? Right?
What's Fin?
Fin is a new product from Intercom. Intercom.com is a company that does customer success software, so customer incident tracking, and they have chatbots for when you land on a web page, so you can talk with the sales rep and all that, right? Fin automatically engages customer issues and helps the customer resolve them without ever involving a human. And you pay 99 cents per resolution. All right. Somebody tell me why Netflix and the New York Times are in this subscription category here. Okay, Dom.
You pay a monthly fee to get access to their services.
Yeah, tell me more. What is it about their services that you get access to?
For New York Times, it's a variety of things, including like articles, cooking journals, more games. I guess that's
Yeah.
a bit of a premium. Is that for their games, you play some and pay a subscription, get access to more. For Netflix, you don't get anything unless you pay a certain subscription.
Right. And then how many TV shows or movies or even games on Netflix can you watch or play based on your subscription? How many?
As many as you want.
Unlimited.
Whatever.
How many hours there are in the week, right? Jaden, you had a question? Okay, go ahead, please.
Netflix's originals, like it's content you can only get on Netflix as well.
Correct. Okay. But that is a way to attract people to come in and buy their subscription. The key here is how are they capturing value? You pay a monthly fee, you get access to everything. Maria?
Yeah, the way this is written, membership economy, I looked at it different, like in terms of the Times and Netflix, I was like, oh, well, if someone's watching your show and you all kind of, like, I don't really know if membership's used in that way that I'm thinking.
Yeah.
If that's like the value that you're talking about.
Yeah, there is. So the reason I use this term is name a food product that uses a subscription. You guys ever been to California?
Well, they have services that like deliver food.
Yes, true. Yep.
I've heard of meal delivery companies where they will, like Factor is a company that
Yeah.
will like pre-make meals for you, deliver them to your door, and
Yep.
throw them in the fridge and you reheat them.
Yes. Anybody been to Napa Valley before? Okay. Name a food product that is on subscription. Wine.
Yeah.
The minute, there's no such thing as a free tasting. You go in, you pay a fee, you taste, and the first thing they do is ask you to sign up for their membership. Okay. There is a method to this. The rationale, the business reason behind subscription. Jaden, if you get 5 dinners a week from Factor every week, tell me what your grocery bill looks like at Kroger.
Significantly lower.
Subscription is a way of securing share of wallet. You pay to get access to be a member, and you get unlimited of that. And not, in the case of Factor and wine, you are limited. You get a usage limit of 6 bottles or a case, or what is it? 12 bottles is a case? I don't even know. But you get what I'm saying, right? There's actually a little bit of a usage limit in there. You get 1 meal per day. You're not getting unlimited meals for the number, but with New York Times, you can read as much news as you want, play as many spelling bee games as you want, right? Wordle, same thing with Netflix. You can do. The subscription is a model for capturing share of wallet. If you're paying $300 a year for wine, you're a little less likely to buy a bunch of other wine from other places. It's not going to lock you out, but subscription is about locking out competitors. It is about gaining a share of wallet. So what I'm trying to do here for y'all is to get you to see what's actually behind the thing. Like, there's a little mystery on behind each of these models, right? Right? Anybody, is this like, you guys feeling it now? Like, why subscription is the way it is? Yeah? Yes, yeah, Maria, yep.
Like, everyone really pushes subscription because of the thing that you just talked about, but obviously subscription is not always appropriate for your product, so can you kind of give
100%.
arguments or a way to filter through
Yeah.
the subscription is appropriate?
Yeah, well, I will. I'm going to show you, actually. Okay? Was there another question? No? Okay. So we're going to talk more about value metric, right? Dynamic, this is also key. What else is a dynamic? What? Uber, thank you. What else?
Electricity, commodities, like
Yep.
utilities.
Yep. What about where did I stay this week? Hotel. They all have dynamic pricing. My uncle used to say years ago, this is a long time ago, and he was right even then. It's like, if you ever want to start a really bad argument on an airplane, just tell the person next to you how much you paid for your seat. Because no one paid the same amount, right? It's all dynamic pricing based on a lot of other factors, right? Auction, this is pretty straightforward, right? You guys know, but it's a little more technical than we think. And of course, freemium. Freemium is very special, and it is, you know, some people think of it as like a marketing tactic, but it is a value capture mechanism, very specific. We'll talk about it in a second. Here's another key thing. This is a principle. Yes, sorry, tell me your name. Navia, okay.
So there was also value metric, and I was wondering, like on social media, when people get paid by views, is that value metric?
Yep, that's right. Okay. The way you monetize is inherent in the product you build. You can't tear them apart. Once you decide the product you're building, you've kind of decided how you're going to monetize. And if you want to change that, you're either going to have to change the product or the monetization model. If you think of it, let's just say like Uber. If all of a sudden it was flat rate pricing, somebody raise your hand and tell me how the app would change. Like, could you use the app the way it is right now if it was all flat pricing? What would go away if it was all flat pricing, Maria?
Probably the different types of cars.
Yeah, exactly. What else? I mean, it wouldn't surge. You wouldn't get surge pricing, right?
Oh, the different discounts they give you.
The discounts.
Like, you wait 12 minutes.
Yeah,
like
all of it, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, the fundamental experience and value of the product would change if they changed how they monetize. You can't tear these things apart. So why is this important? Because the moment you start thinking about your product idea, if you're not thinking about the pricing, you will be in an unfortunate position of having to like try to tack on pricing. And it will very likely be that the way the customer wants you to price is at odds with the product you built. So that's why pricing actually should come before you even build the product. The answer to a lot of these questions has been hybrid. Almost every company you look at actually has a hybrid model going on. I gave an example about the wine. It's not really subscription. It's really a subscription. It's a hybrid that has subscription with a usage model. The usage model is for $300, you get 12 bottles of wine twice a year. You see, it's not unlimited. All of these companies at the top have a hybrid model, and it's built this way. It's free at the beginning, so they're using freemium to get you familiar with the services and everything else, and hope that you move to a paid tier. It's a subscription because you pay per month once you do move to the paid tier, and you pay per seat. So it's a freemium, subscription, value metric hybrid with per seat as the value metric. Yep.
So can you align this with how these are capturing the value?
Yeah. So freemium happens because, so the reason that the way that captures the value is that, this gets into product strategy, but I don't know if you guys would be able to figure it out.
Like one of the examples, like.
Yeah. So here's what's similar. So I don't know, can anybody tell me like what's similar about all those products at the top? What do they do? What category are they in, Jaden?
They're all social workplace products.
Those, yeah, say more about that. What do you mean?
So they're productivity products. They
Yep.
either connect people or provide a centralized space to work on.
Exactly. There's a reason why all of these are up here, because every one of these products at the top follows what's called a product-led growth strategy. Happens to be my initials, PLG. It follows the PLG strategy. The reason it does is that they can offer, well, actually, I'm going to answer your question here, Maria. The reason they can do this and use a freemium model is because there are potentially tens or hundreds or actually billions of people, of customers, that they can market to. That's number one. You cannot do freemium if you have a small number of accounts, because freemium requires you to do what? And then what? Yeah, you have to hope that they upgrade, right? So if you have 100 customers, like there's just no way you're never gonna do it. Millions of customers to do a freemium model. And because freemium is free, you need all of your other expenses to be really low, which is why what Jaden said is so important. Every single one of those productivity products, part of the value is that you work with other people. So the moment you try to, what good is Zoom if you're not gonna Zoom with somebody else? But the moment you invite them to Zoom, what happens? They're now a customer, right? If I share a Google Doc with somebody, share a Figma design with somebody, right? Like that social productivity angle, that's why these companies use this model, because number one, there are hundreds of millions that they need to capture. It would be very expensive to try to go target all of them to start using the product for a fee. So they offer a low, no-cost version that people can start to use in the hopes that they like it so much, they'll pay for the paid tier. Mitch, yeah.
But I was going to say, but it's also that these are all software products and the marginal cost is zero, right?
Well, mostly, yes. And that's an important part here, which is this, right? Like, you can't run this model unless you can fix your cost of goods sold. Like, and you have to have inherent growth. Like, if you're in a situation where you have to go out and sell every new customer, this won't work because you'll have to hire so many more marketing people, hire so many more salespeople, all of these things. So, and oh, right, this only works when you use the product continually. Like if you're going to use Workspace once every 6 months, you probably wouldn't want to pay every month for it. Actually, it's a good question. I don't know. What does Intuit do for TurboTax? Like, if you only do your taxes once a year, I wonder, maybe they're trying to sell you on using it all the way through the year so that you don't have to try to, cram it all in like I have to when I get back. Okay. Oh, yeah. And you have 100% of the control how the product is used. These are requirements. Like, if this isn't the size and shape and characteristics of your market, you cannot run this play. So the market tells you what pricing models you can run. You don't get to choose. The market tells you what you should run. But the problem is most people, we don't look closely enough. Oh, this is important too, network effects. It goes hand in hand with the other point here, inherent organic growth, network effect. Every time somebody else starts using it, it's better for everybody. More users, there's more features. The more users that are using the same platform, it's like, what is one fax machine worth? 0, until the second fax machine is built. Now they can fax with each other. That's like the canonical example of network effect, okay? All right, so here's another example. Claude, GitHub Copilot, Cursor, these are tech products. You guys know Claude, it's ChatGPT, right? Cursor is a programming, and you pay per month. GitHub is programming. These use a subscription, usage-based, and they have this idea of code completions. And so when you're in Cursor and you're writing a program, an app, complete part of the code, you only have so many credits. And then buy more credits, as pay as you go. Anybody ever run over on their data on their mobile phone app? And you have to pay a little more, or you went right? That's what that is, right? You pay as you go. This gets a little bit deep fast, but part of this combination, these three, is because the variable cost, like AI is very expensive to run. Very expensive. It is not a marginal cost like those other productivity products. This stuff costs money. Has anybody heard of like a ChatGPT deep research? Have you guys heard of that? So who hasn't? Just 3 or 4. Okay. So if you can actually do this on Grok, and you can do it on DeepSeek for free. You enter in a search, a research topic, it'll go out and scour hundreds of websites and then compile a research report for you, 10, 15, 20, 25 pages. It's absolutely astounding. It also costs about $40 to $50 to run. It's free to you, but OpenAI, when they run a deep research, it costs them literally in compute about $40 or $50. So they're doing it to capture market. They lose money every single time, but everybody knows what deep research is now, and they're gonna keep doing these things. The point is, to run AI, it is incredibly expensive. And so these companies need pricing models that help them not only capture value, but also account for the cost incurred. Unlike the previous slide where COGS were minimal and basically fixed, meaning there's almost zero marginal cost, here there's an enormous marginal, not only marginal, but it's also variable. And so the model here tries to do both. Mitch?
Pete, I mean, but when you say that, does it raise your spidey senses about these things as products? Because you think back to the .com days of 99, 2000, where it's like, hey, let's sell a bag of dog food for $20 and it'll cost us $20 to ship it, so we'll lose $15 on every bag. And don't worry, if we do it in quantity, we're going to make money somehow.
Yeah, we're the bank of change.
Right. And so I mean, when you hear that, you're like, if it costs you $40 to run it and you're giving it away free, doesn't sound like a sustainable model.
It's not, and it won't be forever. And part of it, and the reason is that OpenAI just raised $300 billion of capital, right? This is such a capital-intensive sport. These other companies like those, they never did that. These guys are playing because this is going to be a winner-takes-most market. They all know it, and they're all lining up big. So the dynamics in the market are a little bit different. And they're playing the long game. They know that they need these loyal customers to continually upgrade from free to the $20 to the $200. And they're playing a long game right now, trying to get those people to convert and weave all of their technology into APIs that other companies will pay a margin for as well. We talked about this unpredictable usage, right? Need for heavy users, cost recovery, people running deep. Actually, you can only run I think it's 10 deep researches a month. So they rate limit you on that too. Okay, here's another example. This is Finn. We talked about Harvey is a law firm app. It's for helping consolidate a lot of the legal kind of behind the scenes stuff. Einstein is part of Salesforce's Agent Force. It's just basically you're able to build and kind of create agents that can do the work either in a co-pilot with a human or in some cases do the work like handle an incoming customer call, do all that work itself. And what we see here, this is super interesting, is there's this thing called a base fee. You have to pay a fee just to be able to access the platform. It's sometimes called a platform fee. But these three models have an outcome-based pricing mechanism. It is a value metric based on successful resolutions. These companies only get paid if the software has a successful outcome. I think I talked about this with you guys earlier. All software up until the last year or so basically tried to enable a user to be more productive so they could deliver better results faster. Almost all software was basically helping a user deliver results. AI delivers the result. So it's fundamentally changing how we price, how we capture value. Because if you can have a product that can handle 10,000 customer inquiries without a human having to touch it, that's worth a lot more than making Johnny a little bit faster at answering phones. Okay? So AI, even though I'm a software guy, it's going to change for every one of you. I am pretty certain almost any business you get into, you're going to have to use AI. Why? Because if you don't, your competitor is. So I'm trying to arm you with some of the things. I'm doing a talk actually this month on kind of how to price AI. I'll send you along my presentation once I finish it. I crumbled it up and threw it on the floor last night. I have to start over. That's a euphemism. I didn't really trash my computer for it. But so these guys here, the reason they can do this model and be paid per outcome, because there is a clear, measurable result that they can also validate. The customer says, you resolve my ticket. Customers love this because they know how many customer issues they get. They know how many of these types of projects they need to handle. So the costs are a little bit more predictable for them. And each of these plays a role in a very specific key performance indicator that is important to the customer. So outcome-based, in these cases, works really well because a customer says, I'm going to pay $20 to solve this problem where I would have had to pay $80 for it, and I can audit the result. The customers are happier. Like, why wouldn't I pay that? I can redeploy those people to go do other higher value tasks now. That's kind of the business that's happening right now with some of these agents and these outcome-based types of strategies. Who uses Grammarly? Anybody? Yes, I love it. Grammarly is a great product. About Notion. Anybody using Notion? Yeah, I really like Notion. I keep getting into it, and then I go all in, and then I revert back to Google Docs. And then I go all into Notion, and then I go back to Google Docs. Anybody using Capacities? Have you even heard of it? It's a new thing. Go check it out, Capacities. It's like the next better Notion. Who wants to guess? We've been talking a lot. Tell me, like, somebody piece apart. These are two well-known products, and you can even cheat. You can look online. Tell me the monetization models that are being run right now for these two companies. You can take a look. Use your laptop, log into Grammarly, take a look at the pricing page, and tell me. Yep.
I think for Notion at least, it's a bit of premium because
Yep.
they have like every time you right click, there's like this try with AI or whatever, and then you think it's free, and then it's like no, you have to pay.
You have to pay. Yeah. Okay. Freemium. Okay. Anybody else? Yep. What was your name again?
My name's Vijay.
Vijay. Okay.
I was gonna say for Grammarly, also a little bit of premium because you can use like their basic like spell check, grammar check, but then it like they like give you a little bit of the sentence rewrite ones.
Yeah.
But then you only get like 2 per day.
Right.
So then it like you can't do it anymore.
That's
so
right.
it
Yeah.
brings you into a mid-tier.
Okay. Good. What else? What else is baked in to the pricing model for these two? Yep. Jaden.
Extra features. It sounds like, well, okay.
Say more about that.
So, for Grammarly, I know you can modify for tone, you can modify for brevity, you can do other things. And I'm looking over Jack's shoulder at the Grammarly pricing plan, and maybe you could. Actually, I have no idea. Maybe there's extra premium levels, but enterprise. I'm not sure, to be honest.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So like with the product and business requirements that you have like written on the slide, so are those product and business requirements aligned with like the value that product is creating? So like for example, with the last slide that you were talking about, like having an outcome that the person actually wants. So like by definition, your product is like outcome based because you are providing a value or an outcome.
That's exactly right, and that's why those products first looked at how does the customer do what? Create value, right? How does the customer create value? How can we build a product to help them create value? In that, let's just take the case of Finn. For that, it is resolving a customer issue, a customer ticket. And they said, okay, we think we can do this. We can build a product that uses AI, that reads all of the past issues and all the documentation on the products and all this stuff, right? And we can actually help answer the question now. And of course, the product company, Intercom, probably tested it quite a bit to validate, because that would be a precarious place to get into. Let it some customers start using it and they never pay you. But maybe it's not solving customer problems. You know, so there's this kind of focus, these outcome-based strategies really put the onus on the product team to make sure that they know it's going to actually create the successful result. My nickname, you know, you guys have heard SaaS, right? Like, what does that stand for? Software as a service. So I call it seats as a service because 90% of SaaS products just charge by seat, the user. But this new wave, I call success as a service because the AI is going to start coming into play and help you achieve results, not just make someone a little bit better at Canva or a little bit better at a slide and that kind of thing. Anyway, yeah, let's take a quick look here. Like rewrite full sentences. So you're getting extra features here, Jaden. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So can we break down Grammarly in the way that you just talked about, like by looking at the price?
That's a good idea. That's what I was trying to have you guys do. You're trying to reverse it on me? That was your challenge.
Walk us through the example, so we're still.
I want one of you to walk us through the example. Okay, Manveer, yes. Yes. What'd you say? AI usage rates. Yeah. Say more. What do you mean by that?
Because, I mean, it's kind of like similar to LinkedIn that you could just, just write your automated messages, you can just write for you, just a prompt. That it has a limit to that.
Has a limit.
Say that, okay, if you want more, just write the 30 level.
That's right. So
their value that they're doing is like write without spelling and grammar mistakes.
That's it. So I mean, if you're using it, that is the core, right? They're just helping you become a better writer. And actually now, one of their other premium features is to spotlight where you've used AI generated text so you can make it sound more human. It actually doesn't remediate the problem, but it'll spot problems for you. So that's another feature that's in here. See this one here, generate text with 2,000 AI prompts. They're giving you a limit down here. Oh, here it is, detect plagiarism and AI generated text. So you don't get any of these here. This is not only, well, this is freemium, but it's also tiered because you do get extra things way over here.
So it's a subscription?
Yes, so it's a subscription by member per month, billed annually. Don't worry about the annual stuff. I can talk more about that. But so by user, that's a value metric per seat, and it says billed monthly. What does that tell us? Usage. Subscription. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back and look at. This is really what I should do.
Why would they use this over like an outcome like based model like the value metric?
Oh, good question. Why would they use this model instead of an outcome? Yeah. That's a great question. Does anybody want to try to take that one? Manveer? Say it again?
You can't validate the outcome.
Can't validate the outcome. That's insightful.
So when they mean validate the outcome, they mean like on their end. Say, like,
correct.
We know that.
How would you know, like what would you, tell me the outcome that you would pay for? Just invent it. Tell me, like what outcome would you pay for?
It's grammatically correct, period, like based off of, American English or whatever. So like when I give you this sentence, I know it follows all the rules of grammar.
I know, but do you want that outcome to happen on just one sentence or an entire 2-page doc?
Yeah, so on the, like, basically that it's been proofread. Like
that it's been proofread.
Yeah, so there's no mistakes in it, so it should follow all the like rules of grammar.
Okay, I think that could work, but what else would you do to help you manage the costs of implementing that? Think about it. If you're using AI to do some heavy lifting like that, how can you help manage the cost side of it? Let me put it a different way. How can you manage or limit the possibility that users abuse the service?
Yeah, you'd have to put a limit on like how many words really or sentences.
Okay, good. All right, so maybe you could do an outcome based. It's like a completed proofread doc. Okay, what do you think might change if you did that? What would have to change on this page? What would change? Actually, I'm going to make it simple. Just look at the pro one because that's the one that has cost associated. What would have to change if we went with that model? Anybody? What would change if we went with the outcome model? What do you think would change? Manveer, give somebody else a break. Okay, if you want to answer, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that number of documents would violate it.
Yeah. But tell me what would change up here. What would go away? What was it, Hui?
Free model will be gone.
Say again?
The free model will be gone.
The free model might be gone. Okay, but tell me, look here. Tell me what changes here. The what? The word limits. Yeah. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, it would probably say something like, maybe there would be a base fee per month. That could be, right? And it would say that gets you 200 sentences, and those sentences are 140 characters each, right? Like they would have to try to put a little guardrails on it, but that's essentially what it would be. It would be, the outcome is a proofread sentence, and this is how many you get, right? Yep, Jaden, you had a question or a comment?
So it's just a usage model.
It could be, but it's a little bit of both, because we use an outcome, right? You actually are getting the outcome, like you won't get charged. So in this model, you'd probably wind up using something called credits, just because of the dynamics. I'm not going to get into it, but the reason it's an outcome is because you're only actually going to quote unquote pay when the sentence is proofread and validated. And that's why but it does have a usage cap. So those two, like having a usage cap is not the same as having a usage-based model. I know that sounds tricky. Do you guys get that? Okay. Maria. She's like, no way. Not at all do I get that.
Yeah, because technically they probably both
No.
have caps.
No, because usage would be this. Usage would be, as you proofread sentences, whether you get them 100% proofread or not, you're going to pay me. Outcome is you only pay me when the sentence is proofread and validated.
So it's like as long as you're using it.
Correct, correct.
So what stops current members, let's say I'm a pro user of Grammarly, and let's say everybody in this room is a pro